while that's happening, let's see. Bring up Canvas. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
We can.
Yes.
All right, let's put the chat over here. Let's hide this. Okay. All right, let's see. Before I get started, let's just take a look at the syllabus, see where we are. So I believe we're wrapping up the 6th week. Right, so we are wrapping up week number 6, and we had just begun discussing Redux earlier this week. And we're going to introduce today the assignment for Redux that's going to give us a chance to play around with maintaining state in a React application using the Redux library. And we're going to be doing that as well next week as well on Monday. And perhaps all throughout the next couple of weeks, we're going to have you play around with Redux. So the assignment goes out today, and it's going to be due on Monday, March 8th. So that's not next week, but the following week, right? So you have let's see, almost 2 weeks to work on this. And so not next week, but the week after that, we're going to have the midterm exam, or exam number 1, however you want to call it. So that's going to be on Wednesday the 10th, and that's it's going to be available that day on the Wednesday, and then it'll be available for 72 hours. I'll make it available. Let's see, it'll be available Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Right? So you can choose any day you want to take it. You need about, I don't know, about 2-3 hours to complete the exam. It'll be very much like the quizzes that you've been taking. A lot of multiple choice, some fill in the blanks, some puzzles, that you have to figure out. That I would ask you, what happens if you click these 2 buttons and then that other button over there? What happens, right? And you can expect use questions about ES6 and jQuery and React and state management, and so you should feel familiar with how the state flows across multiple components, whether using stateful components, stateless components, or class-based components, or functional components. Okay, so we're gonna have a review. And not this week. The next week we're gonna have a review, and right before the exam. And again, you'll have 3 days to decide when to take it. On Wednesday, we're not gonna have the exam during class. Again, you can take the exam anytime you want during the 72 hours. So that day of Wednesday, the March 10th. What I'm thinking of doing is that of building like a small prototype of the project. We'll go over the requirements for the project, and I'd like to build for you a sample, small sample little project that uses a third-party API. You're able to query the API and display the results, and then ask for more information and display the details of a particular result set that you might get from that third-party API. So if we have time, depending on if we finish Redux early, if we are, if we've made a lot of headway onto this assignment, the assignment number 4. If we have time, I'd like to maybe get started with the RESTful services. If we still need some more going over a little bit of Redux again, I know it has a steep learning curve. But if we get done early, I'd like to get started maybe on RESTful service. If not, that's fine. We can wait for it until we come back after the midterm. Okay. Anyway, so that's the plan for the next couple of weeks. We do have a quiz number 3 that's going to be on Monday. It's going to be a React quiz, and where you're going to be asked about stateful and functional and class-based components, where there might be sharing data across multiple components, passing data across, and event handlers across components, things like that. So which this is what you've been playing around with and practicing for your assignment. What else? Let's see. The assignment is, I believe there's an assignment due tonight, right? It was supposed to be due on Monday, and we but I had meant to move it to tonight. And so yeah, and now we're going to introduce the 4th assignment. Let's see, there's a question on the chat. Let's see, any plan to go over OpenAPI when covering REST API? I wasn't planning on to, but sure, we can discuss it. Sure, we can have a discussion about that as well. Yep. All right. So any other questions? I'd like to start going over the assignment number 4. And as always, what I'll try to do is get you as far as I can without actually doing the assignment for you. We'll get you going. I would say maybe halfway there, and then from what we've covered here in the lecture, that should be enough to get you the other half on your own. Okay. So let's see. Let's go to modules, and assignment should be available. Here it is, assignment number 4.
Sorry.
Yes.
Question: is the exam going to cover up to Redux or up to RESTful?
The what? I'm sorry again?
The exam, is it going to cover up to Redux or up to the previous
quiz class? The quiz only goes up to React, no Redux, but the exam will go up to Redux.
But not REST?
Not REST, no, not REST.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, we'll go over all the material that is going for the exam, and we'll see some sample questions, and yeah, we can discuss that. Make sure we'll make sure to say what's going to be on it, what's not going to be on it. Okay. Yeah. So we talked about Redux last time we met earlier this week, and we said that we were going to be using Redux for state management across the application, right? And that we had taken a look at how we can maintain state using state variables that could be shared amongst multiple components. You could have a parent component that could then share that state, and event handlers by passing properties down the line through a chain of dependencies between components and subcomponents. And we talked about some of the pros, some of the cons of doing that, and that it becomes awkward, shuffling all this data back and forth, especially if there are multiple components that might not even care about the state, right? But nevertheless, that need to access a leaf in this tree, this branch of components might need that component, that event handler in that state, right? That passing this data back and forth is somewhat cumbersome. It creates a very tight coupling dependency between the various components, that if we could rip apart some of those dependencies, it makes it much more flexible to move around the layout of the component wherever you want to put it. So we demoed a couple of examples where we could easily move things around and put them wherever we want, so that instead of having the state being drilled from one component into the next, we could have the components be independent of each other and ask for the state, from wherever they were being rendered, right? So it's kind of like a pull architecture as opposed to a push architecture. So yeah, so this assignment is designed to practice those techniques. We're going to be implementing the course editor, right? That up to this point has been a static piece of code, right? It's just HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, and that's it, right? But so this time around, we're going to be using reducers and providers and stores and connectors and whatnot, right, to make this a reality, right? We're going to create several components that we're going to break out this, fairly complex page into several subcomponents. We're going to have a component that renders only the modules here on the left-hand side. Right? Remember, we have a course manager that shows just a list of courses that when you click on a course, right, you navigate to this course editor, and this course editor, the content that it shows is going to be dependent on the course that you selected on the previous screen, right? So we're going to navigate here. We're going to encode the ID of the course that you've selected in the previous screen. We're going to encode it as part of the URL, and then that ID, we're going to use it. We're going to parse it from the URL, and then we're going to fetch the modules that are for that specific course, right? If we navigate back and choose a different course, we're going to navigate back here, and it'll be a completely different set of courses. Make sense? So there's a dependency, right? A one-to-many dependency between the previous screen, the course manager, whether you are displaying it as a table or as a grid, doesn't matter, right? You come here, you pass in the ID of the course, and then we can have many modules for one course. Okay. We're going to have a component, a functional component, responsible for rendering this list of modules. And it'll have its own reducer, right, that will be able to handle all sorts of manipulations about that list of modules, right? It'll be able to handle being able to create new modules, being able to edit a module, delete a module, update a module, right? So all those things would be handled by its own reducer. Okay. We're also going to have a list of lessons up here, which are going to be dependent on the modules that you select on the left-hand side. Right? So if you select a particular module, then we're going to go out to the server and fetch the lessons for that module. Right? Just like we were able to determine a one-to-many relationship, implement a relationship between courses and modules, there's going to be a one-to-many relationship between modules and lessons. Right? So if you select a particular module, we're going to display many lessons for that particular module. Right, so as you click to the different modules, different lessons will appear at the top up here. Okay, and notice that this one too has a plus at the end that allows you to create new lessons at the end, and allows you to also edit a lesson, delete a lesson, update a lesson. Okay, notice that it also highlights that particular module when you've selected it. It also highlights if you're editing, and you can edit multiple modules at the same time. Right, you can have multiple editing options, right, where you're editing one module here, one module there, and they all highlight, right, but there's only one selected module, right, the one that, if you click on it, that is the selected module, right, and the lessons that are displayed up here are for the one that is selected, not necessarily the one you're editing, but the one that it is currently selected, okay, that it's not being edited, and you can only select one at a time. Same thing for the lessons. You can only select one lesson at a time, but you can edit multiple lessons at the same time, right? Where you can edit, change the title for the lesson. You can say okay, and then it goes out, and the input field goes away, right? Or you can delete it, right? So there's kind of like a toggling mechanism there, right? Where when you click on edit, right, it toggles the title. Right, it changes it to an input field. You can edit it. You can then say okay, and it disappears. It goes back to the title, right, and whatnot. Right. For the topics, the same thing, right? So again, there's many topics for one lesson. So if you click on a particular lesson, you get a different list of topics down here. And again, those can be edited. right? There will be a the list of modules will be implemented in module lists. The list of the lessons will be implemented as tabs, right? And the pills and the topics will be implemented, and the topics will be implemented in topic pills. Okay, and pills is this kind of like buttons, right? They are like just rectangular buttons, right? So these are rendered like tabs. Notice the tabs, right? The selected tabs. See that? And whereas pills are just buttons, right? Just buttons that either highlight or unhighlight, like on, off, on, off. Okay. And so those are, so this list of modules on the left-hand side is implemented on module list. This tabs, this on the right-hand side is implemented by lesson tabs. And then these pills down below with the plus here, right, is implemented in topic pills. Topic pills. Okay. These are all stateless. These are all functional components. These are all functional components. All right, so I guess I should put here a functional React component. These are all functional component. All right, which behaves as I described. Now, because this input field over here that has an X and it has an OK here, it has a pencil, right? Notice that it's the same behavior throughout, right? Here for the modules, here for the tabs, and here for the pills, right? You have like an input field that has an X and an OK, a check mark, and a pencil, and they all behave the same way. So instead of implementing that behavior 3 times, right? One for the modules, one for the lessons, and one for the topics, right? We're going to implement it once, right? And we're going to implement it in a component that we're going to call, okay, I think the student gave it a better name. We're going to call it the editable item. Editable item. I think that's a much better name. One of the students suggested that. Editable. I think that's what he said. And so you're going to be able to use this, right, multiple times to be able to edit either a lesson or topic or a module, right? So instead of implementing this multiple times, you implement it only once, right? And then you can use that component in multiple places, which is perfect, right? That's exactly what we want in React, right? Where that promotes the reusability of components. Okay, and also we'll need to for each one of these modules, lessons, and topics, each one of them is going to have CRUD operations, right? So that we can save these modules or save these lessons or save these topics on the server. Okay, and so we need to be able to fetch them, right? Whenever you select a particular module, right? We need to go fetch the lessons for that module. Whenever you select a lesson, we need to go fetch the topics for that lesson, right? So each one of these, right, is going to have its own service layer, right? Its own CRUD operations that allow you to do create, read, update, delete modules, create, read, update, delete lessons, create, read, update, and delete topics, right? So each one of those is going to be implemented in its own service, file. Right, so for instance, for the module, there will be the function will be it will be in module service.js, and there'll be lesson service.js and topic service.js. So we're going to get you started with this, right? So we'll get you started with module service. Actually, probably we'll do the whole thing for module service for you. We'll get you maybe started with lesson service, right? And then we'll let you do the whole thing on your own for topic service, completely on your own. Okay. Now, some of these functions behave slightly different from what you've seen before for the course manager. We already implemented something similar like this, right? But there's a slight difference, right? In that case, for the courses were kind of standalone, right? You would ask for all the courses, right? And you would do find all courses, all right? Or you would create a brand new course, right? As part of all the courses, yes? Well, here, now you have to take into consideration that modules, for instance, are not standalone, right? For instance, it makes no sense to create a module, by itself, right? It only makes sense to have a module within the context of a particular course, right? So we need to be able to know, well, what course are you talking about, right? For what course are you creating this module? Or when you're creating the lesson, again, you need to know what is the context, right? For what module are you creating that lesson? And same thing for topics, right? When you're creating a topic, for which lesson are you talking about? So these are all exist in a specific context, right? They're not, they're not exist. They don't exist in a vacuum, right? So that's why here we're introducing a new syntax. We're creating a new syntax in the generic server, right? It allows you to establish a relationship between a parent and a child. Okay, so for instance, for course, right, there's going to be many modules for a given course, right? So there's a one-to-many relationship. So here you can say, if I ask for the modules, it won't be for all the modules. It makes no sense to ask for all the modules, right? Instead, it'll be the modules for a given course. Okay, same thing when you create a new course, when you create a new module, it would be within the context of a course. Whenever you retrieve a list of modules, it will be within the context of courses. So these first two, right, use this URL. Now the other three, these over here, they don't really need a context, right? If you delete a module, it doesn't matter that it belongs to a particular course, right? You just remove the module, it's gone, right? Same thing when you update a module, because you know its ID, you can just update that specific module. There's no need for the context of the course that it belongs to. Same thing for the module. If you know their ID, you can just retrieve that module and that's it. You don't need to know the parent course, right? So that's why there's a URL for specific module, right? Or a modules within the context of a course. Same thing for service, right? There are some APIs that for lessons that need to know the parent module, like create a lesson or find lessons. Those are all within the context of a module, whereas these three are standalone, right? They don't need to know the context. You just tell me the idea of the lesson, and I'll know which one to delete, or which one to update, or which one to retrieve. Same thing for topic. Okay. And then there's reducers, right? You'll need 3 reducers. You'll need a reducer for each one of these data types, right? And each one will support the various CRUD operations, right? You need to be able to handle that. I want to create a new module. I want to retrieve modules for find modules. This should be plural. Find lessons, topics. Okay. That allow you to retrieve modules for course, find a specific module, update a module, delete a module, right? Same thing for lessons, all the CRUD operations for the lessons, right? And today we'll show you how is it that we can combine multiple reducers, right, into a top level root reducer, right? Let's see, there's a question on the chat. How about having modules with a foreign key field that references belonging to a course? That's exactly that's exactly how it's being stored in the database. Yep. Instead of establishing course module relationships through URL. Yeah, well, I mean the URL, right? So what happens is that right, when you ask for modules within the context of a course ID, right? Basically, you're saying that I want the modules whose foreign key is equal to that particular course. Right, exactly. That's exactly the way it's being stored in a database, as a foreign key back to the course, right? But the URL is following RESTful standards, right? In the RESTful standards, if you have a one-to-many relationship between a parent and a child, the URL API should be parent, ID of the parent, and then the children. Okay, so that's very, very common in RESTful services. Okay. All right. So let's get you started. All right. Let's see where we left off last time. Right. And we'll get you started with the modules and the lessons today. And then as far as we get you going with those two, right, you can then perhaps work on your own for the topic. Okay. All right. Let's see. Also, if you're following this on YouTube, I would really appreciate if you do a thumbs up on this video and you share it with your folks. And if you have any comments, any questions, leave them down in the comments. All right, so let's get started. Let's see what we've got. Let's open up the project for this course. It was this one right here, right? Web Dev Spring 2102. Let's open that up. All right, so let's see where we left off, right? So let's start this. And I believe we had created the course manager, and we had the grid, the table, and we were able to navigate into the course, right? There we go. So we have the table, we have the grid, right? We have the course editor, okay? And we also, if we are in a particular grid, right, we were able to navigate to the editor. And I believe we got as far as being able to render a list of modules using a really simple reducer, right? So let's look at the implementation of the course editor. This is where we're going to be spending most of our time here for the next week or so, a week and a half or so, right? Where we're going to be adding several reducers to not only render modules, but we want to render also lessons, right? We're going to render topics and see how we can have them depend on each other. Okay, so let's look at the code. So we started off by implementing module list, and module list was a simple state functional component, right? That was rendering my modules where we initialize it with a default array. So if nobody passed us any modules, at least we wouldn't crash trying to iterate over an undefined array. So that's why here we are initializing it just in case, right? And we're iterating over those modules, that array that is being passed, and we're retrieving that from some state, right? Some state that is being passed to us through a connect, right? That is going to receive the state, right? From where we're going to retrieve the modules array and then bind it to a property that you're expecting. You're expecting that property, and we're passing you that property by with the when we invoke the module list, right? We pass the properties that we have extracted from the state, right? And the state is being populated by a reducer, right? So the modules reducer here, right, had this list of dummy modules in this initial state, which we use to initialize the state of the reducer. And since this action did not match any of the above actions, right, the reducer is just calculating the next state as being just the initial state, right? That initial state is being used to create a store, right? Create a store right here. That reducer is being used to create a store that stores all the states that are being generated by the reducer, and then that store is then propagated down to all components inside the provider, including the module list, which the module list then picks out that array, right, and it maps it to the component, the property that we passed in through this to this property here that we're expecting my modules, and then it just iterates and renders it. Okay, everybody good? Everybody still with me? All right, excellent. So let's now focus on being able to expand on this, right? For instance, right now, right, we just have this list of modules, and that's it, right? Let's practice. Let's practice doing something similar for lessons, right? So let's do the same thing we did here, the lessons. So that's gonna give us a chance to go over what we just did earlier this week, right? So that we remember what we did, right? So what do we do first? Well, we created let's create a component, right? So let's create a component, and maybe let's create a file here, and this will be our lesson tabs. All right, so lesson tabs is going to be a React component from React, right? And it's going to be something like a lesson tabs that it's going to receive the lessons as an array, right? Which is going to be maybe a div here that's going to have h2 here that says lessons. Just let's see if this renders, right? We're gonna then we're gonna export this, export default lesson tabs. Okay, so if we go back to the course editor, we can render the lesson tabs down here. Okay, and there they are. These are the lesson tabs down here, right? And they would look something like this. We would have a UL, right? And you have LI. And lesson tabs, I believe they need hyperlinks. They need a hyperlink. Right, just pointing to nothing. Right, so this is tab lesson 1. Right, and I believe the class for this was something like nav tabs, and maybe this was not sure. let me go back to my bootstrap. So get bootstrap and see what the navigation were. Nav bar. Here we go. Oh no, tabs. Sorry, tabs. Tabs. There we go. And they are as follows. So they look like this. So nav tabs, then nav item. This is nav item. And then the hyperlink, you have nav link. So this is class name, and this is nav link, right? And you can have a whole bunch of these. Let's create a couple of these. And they render like that. See that? Lesson, there we go. Right, and maybe several different lessons, right? So this is lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There they are. And you can then make a specific lesson active, I believe by saying active like that. And there we go. See that? The lesson is active as opposed to all the other ones. Notice that if I hover over them, they kind of, you get the border. All right, so we want to make this dynamic. And so we can do that by initializing here our array. We can make this a little bit easier to read, like that. There we go. And we can initialize this. The default value for this could be, maybe a couple of lessons, right? That would be maybe an ID for lesson 1, 2, 3, and this is lesson A. Right, and this would be B and C. Okay, something like that. And this would be the title. Okay, like something like that. Okay, and so here, instead of having this hard-coded list of lessons, we can iterate over this. It would be this dot. No, not this. Sorry, it would be lessons dot map lesson, right, and then we can return one of these LIs. We're going to grab, just copy that and put it here. And this would be what? This would be the lesson title. Okay, there we go. See that? Lesson A, B, C, right? And then 1, 2, 3. All these are just hard coded. So we can just dispense with these dummy ones, right? I won't throw them away. I'll just leave them. Oops. I'll just comment them out. Just comment them out. There we go. So we only have A, B, C. Right. So instead of this maintaining this default value, right? And it's defaulting because nobody's passing it the value of lessons. Since nobody's providing that data, it is defaulting to this value, right? But instead, what we want to do is inject lessons in here, but from the reducer. Okay, so let's create a reducer that has this data. Let's grab this let's grab this just like that. Maybe this object just like that. And let's create a reducer, right, that maintains a state for this, right? So this will be JavaScript, and this will be lesson reducer. Okay, and so we can put here an initial state, right, that is equal to that object, right? But it needs to be JSON, right? So this is colon. All right. And just to make this a little more realistic, or different, right? We'll say that this is 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, and 3, 4, 5. Okay. So how do we get this data back into that component, right? We need to have a function that can calculate what the current state of that application is, right? So we'll do something like const, and this will be the lesson reducer, right? Which takes the initial state, right, and an action. Right now we don't have action, but let's get it started, right? We'll know that we will have a switch here that, depending on the type, right, or for now just to make it simpler, right? This is just going to return the state, right? It's just going to return the state. So it's just going to return this. It's going to return this object. It's going to return that state. Yes. Let's export this. Export default lesson reducer. Okay. Then from our course editor, right, we can bring that reducer and say that lesson reducer. There it is, right? And we can create the store from our new lesson reducer. So now the data is being excuse me. The data is being populated, right? The store is being populated by our lesson reducer, not our module reducer, right? So if we go here, notice that the modules is getting 0, right? Because it's trying to retrieve, right? Remember, our module list is trying to retrieve the modules from state.modules. But now the reducer is not generating any modules, right? So it's not getting anything. Instead, it's being generated by lesson reducer. Lesson reducer is putting what into the state? It's putting these lessons into that state. Okay, so we need to pull it out. So how do we do that? So in the lesson tabs, we're going to try and pull out from the state.lessons, and we're going to map it to this property. They happen to have the same name, right? But they don't have to, right? So let's pull it out. We're gonna first do the connect, right? We'll need to import the connect, right, from React Redux. There we go. And we're gonna do connect. There we go. So this doesn't change anything, hopefully. Attempted React Redux does not contain yada yada yada. Oh yeah, okay, no, I forgot to put this in curly brackets. There we go. Oops, object is not a function. Ooh, tabs 41, tabs 41. Defaults, connect, lesson tabs. What did I break? Lesson connect, lesson tabs, object export connect, lesson tabs. Connect React Redux, export default connect, like that, and lesson tabs. Yeah, that's correct. Const lesson tabs. Maybe something wrong with these guys. No. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it must have been something with my comments. All right. So now we need to somehow pull out the lessons, right, from the reducer, from the state, and then map it to the properties that you're expecting, right? So how do we do that? Remember, there's two functions here. One is the state to property mapper, right, that can take the state and then pull out whatever you want to pull out. Okay, and we also have the dispatch to property mapper that can if you want to communicate back to the reducer, if you want to call the reducer and make any changes in the state, right? So this allows you to read from the state. This allows you to manipulate the state, okay? And these are two functions that are parameters here, right? There we go, right? Okay, so here is where we can do the mapping, where we can read from the state and populate the property that you're expecting, right? So we're going to populate the lessons that you're expecting, and we're going to pull it out from the state, which also is called lessons. Okay, see that? So notice that now it's lesson 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, right? Which are not these default ones. They're being pulled out from the reducer. See that? 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. Just so you make sure that you believe me, let's change this to a 1, 1, 1. And notice that this changes to 1, 1, 1. Okay? All right. So yeah, we're pulling it out from the reducer. Everybody okay? All right. But we broke the modules. What happened, right? We broke the modules. So we really want both at the same time, right? So what can we do? Well, what we can do is we can go back to the course editor instead. So instead of having to choose one or the other, right? What we can do is combine them into one super reducer, right? That where we have two sub reducers, contributing to the overall state. Okay, so let's combine them. Let's combine and create a super reducer that combines both reducers, right? So let's do that. So this is my reducer. The overall reducer is going to combine reducers, right? And the way you combine them is by creating a map, right? And that map allows you to create namespaces, right? So that you can name one reducer one way, you can name another reducer another way, right? So I'm going to use just the regular names: module reducer, and lesson reducer. Okay, and now what this does is that it puts puts all the state that the module reducer is generating. It'll put it under the namespace module reducer, and it'll put all the states that the lesson reducers under namespace lesson reducer. Okay, and then if you want to pull out different states either from one reducer or the other reducer, you're going to have to namespace it, right? It says, well, which one do you want? Do you want the ones that are coming from the module reducer or the ones that are coming from the lesson reducer, right? So let's do that. Let's put reducer here. So instead of having this store here, we're going to have the reducer right there, right? So now we have the combined state that are being generated by both reducers, right, as part of one big state, right? But if I go here, notice that the lessons went back to the default, right, ABC, right? So it looks like it's not pulling the data from the reducer, right? So what we need to do is fix it so that it knows that it should pull it from one reducer or the other reducer, right? So let's do that. So let's go to lesson tabs and change this a bit and says, okay, well, the states are now namespaced, right? The lessons are coming now from the lesson reducer. So here we need to put in and namespace it like that. See that? We do that and we go back. Notice that now we get back our lessons. See that? So we can do the same thing for the modules, right? Let's go back to the module list and namespace it here as well. So this will be from the module reducer. Okay, there we go. Notice that now we have both. We have the modules and we have the lessons. Make sense? Everybody good? All right, excellent. Let's see. Well, notice that the layout is not quite what we want. So let's fix up the layout. I believe it needs to be like a 2/3, 1/3, 2/3 split, right? So let's fix that, so we can we can go back to the course editor, right? And here we can just create a simple split using Bootstrap grids, right? So we can have a div, right? We can have a div here, class, which is a row, right? And then in here we can have 2 columns, one that is 2/3, right? And one that is 1/3 and 2/3, right? So this might be column 8, right? And then we can just move the module on the left-hand side and move the lessons on the right-hand side. Okay, so there it is. So now we have a split. We have the modules on the left, and we have the lessons on the right-hand side. Everybody good? All right, excellent. So I think we've done enough that you should be able to go off and do the pills on your own, at least this part, right? You should feel comfortable on creating a topics reducer, right? Combining it with these two and then rendering as a pill. And you can get the pills over here. If you look for pills, actually, no, it's actually right here. If you look down further, there they are. See the pills? Right? And that's how they render. So it's nav pills, nav item, active, blah, 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 right? So they're not tabs, right? They're not lists, right? They're pills, okay? So you can render them using that style, okay? All right, excellent. So let's go a little further. We would like to be able to create new modules, right? So how would we do that? Okay, so how do we create new modules? Well, in the module list, remember that it has the state to property mapper that allows us to read data from the reducer, whereas dispatch to property mapper allows us to send data right to the reducer, right? So this is what we're going to be using. We're going to be using the dispatch to property mapper to be able to send, let the reducer know that we want to create a new module, right? So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we're going to add a plus sign down here so that we can click on it, right, and then generate the event, right? So how do we do that? Well, we're going to take this line item, we're going to add one at the bottom, right, and we're going to populate it with an icon. So right now we have like an empty line item down at the bottom, which notice that it's outside of the iteration, right? So this one is permanently there. Okay, and then this could be an icon, something like class name. This could be FAS, FA plus, right, and make it big, right? So something like FA2X, something like that. Okay, so there it is, plus. And if we click on it, what we're going to do is that we're just, remember, we are going to be a stateless component. We don't maintain our own state, right? Our state has been ripped out, right? And instead is being managed by our reducer, right? That's the whole point, right? We don't want to manage anything here, right? So that we don't create any dependencies between modules and whatnot, right? So what we're going to do is that all the state management is going to be handled in the reducer, right? So presumably in the modules reducer, we'll have a section here that we're going to invoke somehow, and let it know that we want to create a new module, right? So somehow we need to invoke module reducer, pass an action whose type is create module, and here's where we would recreate the module. What would we do? Well, we would somehow append a new dummy module to this array. Okay, that's what we're going to try and do over here. But first, we need to know, well, how do we invoke this, right? So here we have an alert. Well, yeah, we'll do that alert in a minute. We want to invoke this create module, right? So how do we do that? Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is the way we're going to do it, right? We're going to use the dispatch to property mapper to do that, right? So how do we do that? So here's the icon that we want to click. So we have an onClick, right? And here we can just we know that this can be we can do an alert, right? Like alert, and this could be create module 1, 2, 3, so that if we click on it, indeed we have create module 1, 2, 3. Perfect, excellent. But right, what we're going to do here is that instead we want to notify the outside world, right? This component wants to notify who? The reducer, that something happened, right? And the way we're going to do it is that someone, right, is going to pass us. We're going to pass us an event handler, create module, right? Someone's going to pass it to us so that we can invoke it, right? So it'll be some function. It'll be some function, maybe something like this function, maybe. Right, we can extract that and maybe paste it over here as a default function. Default, just like we have a default array here, we can have a default function. So maybe do 2, 3, 4 here. Let's invoke it right there. Create module. So it's a default. So if nobody passes a function, it's going to have this default value. So that if we click on it, notice that it's a module 2, 3, 4. So we're calling that default function. Yes. Okay. So we are calling that. But it's not really this. We want it to be passed by who? By this dispatch mapper, right? The dispatch master. We want to have this function, not here, right? Is going to be passed to us here. So basically, it's going to have this create module. This create module is going to be down here as a mapping, as a map, like a JSON map, right? Like a return, right? Something like a return here, return, like that. Okay, we're going to return this map that says that, hey, for that property there, I'm going to pass you that function. I'm going to call this 345, 345, so that we know which one we're calling, right? And then who's going to do the mapping, right? This DTPM, right? Does the mapping and is being passed. Those properties are being passed to the module list, right? So that if I click here, notice that we have, there we go, 345, right? So we know we are calling this function, right? But this is not really what we want to do. Really, what we want to invoke is the here, right? The reducer. We want to call this in here the create module, because here is where we're going to update the state, right? So this alert, really, I want it to happen over here, right? And this will be alert 456, right? So how do we call that? Well, we call it by calling the dispatch. I'm going to say dispatch, and we're going to pass an action, an object. We're going to pass an object, which is going to be the action, which is going to have a type equal to create module, right? So we're going to say, we're going to pass you an object whose type is create module, right? So this is going to invoke this module reducer with the proper action, which is going to be equal to create module, and it's going to do the alert, right? So let's try it out. There it is, right? Create module 456. See that? So this 456 is being invoked. So we know that we're invoking this code right here, right? We're in the right place. Okay. So what do we want to do here? Well, what the reducers do, right? They calculate the new state. So what should the new state be? Well, it should be whatever the list of modules you had before plus an added module, right? It has to add a new dummy module, right? So let's do that. Okay. So how do we do that? So what we're going to do is that we're going to calculate a new state. So the new state will be something like, const new state. New state will be, right, it'll be the old, we're going to have the old modules, right? We're going to have the old modules. Well, actually, no, it's going to say the modules are going to be we're going to spread over and copy over the old modules. So modules, and copy the old array from the state, right? The modules, and then we are going to append at the end a new object that is going to have a brand new title, right? That's going to be called maybe new module with some bogus ID, right? Now I'm going to add this ID now, right? But I need to remember to remove it, okay? Because I don't want to generate the ID here. I want to generate the ID on the server, right? But we'll do that later when we deal with the server. We haven't done that just yet, right? For now, we'll use the ID here, but please remember that we need to remove it when we send this over to the server, okay? We cannot send IDs to a server. The server needs to generate all these IDs, right? But we don't have a server just yet. We'll do that a little later. Okay, so for now, we're going to generate this random ID using new date, right? And getting the time, okay? So that's creating a brand new state, right? That has the old modules plus an added module at the end. And so now we can return the new state. We can return the new state, okay, which is now includes a new dummy module at the end, right? So let's try it again. Let's try it. There it is. See that new module, right? Adding and as shown at the end. Makes sense. Obviously, this is not we're not saving this anywhere, right? So if I refresh, they're all gone, right? It goes back to the default state. Everybody good? Everybody still with me? All right,
Yes.
excellent. So yeah, so let's take a look at now the fact that we would like to be able to edit these, right? We would like to be able to edit them, delete them, right? Things like that. So how do we do that? So what we'd like to be able to do, right, is render these folks as with a component, right, that can be edited, right, using the editable item component, right, that can be used for both for modules, for lessons, for topics, so that you can click on the pencil, right, click on the pencil, and then you can edit it, just type something new and then say okay, and then it gets saved, right? And we don't want to have to implement that once, twice, 3 times. So instead, we're going to implement a kind of like our own little tag component that can be used anywhere we want to edit something. Yes, without having to do this multiple times. All right, so let's do that. Let's create a new component, right? And we'll call it, so we'll say editable item. Okay, and right now the item, right? So it's just going to be a React component like we've been doing, right? So this is from React, and so this is going to be an editable component item that we're going to pass presumably an item. Pass an item. Maybe we can initialize it. We're going to assume that this item has the following schema or the following structure that's going to have a title, right? Going to have a title, some title, and it's going to have some bogus ID, right? So it's going to have some ID, right? ABC. Okay. Let's make this so we can read this a little better. Item, and let's and this goes here. And what am I doing wrong here? I think I need to do this and do maybe a return here, right? And close this. Oh, an arrow. Need a curly bracket here, and close curly bracket right there. Okay, and this will be H2 item or something. All right. Okay. Excellent. All right. So this is an item. We're going to do an export default editable item, and maybe this renders not like this, but renders the item dot title. Okay. And maybe not H2, maybe span. Okay. Everybody good? Everybody still with me? All right. So we're going to pass an item from the outside, right? Sometimes there will be modules, which has titles and IDs, or sometimes there will be lessons, or sometimes it will be topic. And we're going to assume that they all have the same fields, right? Title and ID, right? So it's a generic component, right? That can be used in different places, but it's not generic enough, right? Where it's assuming a couple of things about what you're passing it, right? We could make it even more generic, right? That you can pass me what field do you want me to display, right? But let's not go that far, right? So I'm going to assume that you have a title and an ID, okay? All right, excellent. So I have that. If I go back to my module list, notice that I'm rendering it, and right here, right? So this is where I do the rendering. So instead of module title, okay, we can do editable item and say that the item, right? The item is the module, and the modules does have a title and an ID, right? And let's see how it renders. Okay, it renders pretty good, right? It renders just like we would expect, right? No difference. Oops, right? What else? Well, we could do the same thing for the lesson tabs, right? So the lesson tabs, we have the line item. Line item here is it's a hyperlink, right? Notice that it's a hyperlink. We could use we could use an editable here. We could say, instead of this title, we can say editable item. And we say that the item is the lesson. Okay, and there they are, right? So works pretty well. Let's keep going. All these items, right? We want them to have a whole bunch of things in here, right? Now notice that there's a span here. There's a span, right? So if I look at this, I look at the DOM that's being generated, it's generating an LI, right? And then a span. See that? The span over here. Now notice, look at this. If I remove the span, right? Notice that I have removed the span, and the data, right? The content has no wrapping element, right? The content is being added as is to the parent LI without any span divs, right? So this over here, right? It's a nice little technique where you have an anonymous tag, right? That is not specifically div or span or anything. And what it means is that I don't want to have any in between element or DOM element in between my parent and this content. But nevertheless, I have to wrap them. I have to wrap the whole content, right? Whatever I have in here, with some container, right? But I don't want the container to be any specific element, right? I want the whole thing to be appended to the parent, right? Very, very nice. Okay. Other things that I might want here, the title, maybe I want an input field, right? Maybe I want, if I want an input field, notice that now everybody has an input field. See that? So you have the item title, you have input fields everywhere. See that? Maybe I want a couple buttons, right? We have an icon for like a check mark, right? So check, right? So we have now everybody has check marks everywhere. Let's see, is there a question in the chat? Let's see. So does this? Yeah. So can you explain span again? All right. So let's explain both things. So does the open close? So does this symbol matter? Well, it matters because return can only return one thing, right? So I do need to wrap, right, my content with something, right? And I need to say div or span or something. I need to put something there, right? But if I put span or div or whatever I put, it'll add that item in between, right? And it could complicate, for instance, a styling, right? Some of my styling rules might expect that the children are immediate descendants of its parent, right? And so if I add anything in between, I might break some CSS rules, right? Which I might not want to. Okay, but nevertheless, I do need to wrap it in something, right? So that because return only takes one single argument, right? I cannot, for instance, do this, right? It would be a syntax. It can't. No, return says, well, no, I can only return one thing, right? So I do need to wrap it around something. Let's see, another question. Can you explain span? Span is just it's the opposite of divs, right? Divs is a generic collection of elements, but it takes up the entire width of the page and adds vertical spacing. Whereas span, instead of being a block element that takes up the entire width, right? Instead, it's an inline, right? So it just follows the flow of the content, right? But it allows you to grab and group together content, but not adding any vertical spacing, right? So that's the difference between span and div. One is a block, div, and span is an inline, right? But both of them are used for grouping other elements inside, okay?
Professor?
Yes.
Yes. I think my question is, I mean, is there any special intention that we avoid? For example, avoid put anything behind between the parent and the children, or it's just because we don't want any style, so we just use the curly brackets. No, not curly brackets. This symbol.
Yeah. Let me show you, for instance, right? Here in the tabs, for instance, you have LI and you have the hyperlink, right? So the styling in Bootstrap for tabs expects that the hyperlinks follow the line items immediately, right? So you have nav item and then followed right away with a hyperlink that has a class of nav link. Make sense? If I put anything in between the hyperlink and the line item, it'll break the style and it won't look like a tab anymore. Okay, so just hang on with that idea. So if I move this hyperlink, right, I could decide to put this hyperlink inside of the editable, right? So let's do that. Let's put it inside of the editable, right? And so my title here, I'm going to wrap it with a hyperlink. I wrap it inside of a hyperlink. Okay. Now the styling stays the same. The styling stays the same as a hyperlink, right? Because there is no space. There's no space between the line item and the hyperlink. If instead I use a span, right? Notice that I put a span in between the hyperlink, right? And then LI. So I would have broken any style that would have expected dot nav item followed by dot nav link, right? Because now there's a span in between, right? So oftentimes I don't want to add any extra content in between, right? Same thing if I'm iterating over tables or rows, right? And I want to generate dynamic rows, and so say I have the row inside, but I need to wrap it inside a parent. But the table expects to be T body followed by TR. If I put anything between the T body and the TR, right, dynamically, right, it'll break the DOM and says, well, no, you don't have proper DOM. Understand? So that's why I sometimes do want to add something, sometimes I don't. In this case, I don't want to add anything.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Okay, these are still hyperlinks, right? Perfect. Okay, what else do we need? Probably need a couple other. We'll need check boxes. We need a times, like an X, so that we can remove it. We'll need like a pencil to be able to edit, right? So those are the icons that we're going to need, right? And depending on which icon I click, I want to be able to either display the input field or display the hyperlink. Okay, so let's do that. Now, where do we maintain the information on whether we're editing or not editing, right? We could keep track of that. We could keep track of that in the reducer. We could do that, right? I mean, the reducer is the all-knowing, right? That knows the state of everything. Okay, but you have to ask yourself, hierarchically and architecturally, I mean, is whether I'm editing a particular item, is that worth? Is that something that other components might want? Is that something that the application wide should know, that I'm editing this individual element? Maybe you do want the whole application to know, right, that yes, you are editing this over here. Okay, but that is a decision. That's a design decision that you need to make. Do I want to put the fact that I'm editing a specific item, right, as part of the application-wide state, or should I keep that to myself, right, and just keep it in a very local state and not pollute the entire application state? Okay, so same thing as when you hover. See that I'm hovering? I'm hovering. It changes the look and feel. Same thing. You see that when I hover, right? It changes kind of the state between a highlight and not highlight. Yes. Where is that maintained? Is that application state wide, right? Does everybody need to know that I'm highlighting or not? Maybe not, right? So again, architecturally, you have to decide what for you means application-wide state, right? Or should I have a narrower state that only matters within my little component? So I'm going to decide architecturally that whether I'm editing or not is not worth telling the world about it. I'm just going to keep it in a local variable that I'm either editing or not. Make sense? Okay, so how are we going to do that? We're going to do that using the technique that we mentioned earlier this week, right? We used hooks to do that, right? We're going to use a hook. It's called state, right? The use state hook that allows us to maintain local state within this component without bothering anybody else, right? So we're going to create a variable here called editable or editing, right? And a mutator function that is going to allow us to manipulate, right? To change this, right? Set editing, right? And we're going to initialize it, use state, right? We're going to initialize it to false. Okay. So we're initializing our variable state, state variable editing. We're going to initialize to false, and we have a mutator, so we can set it to true or false, depending on different events. All right. Now, right now we can now that we have this state, we can use this editing to toggle and show certain things when it's editing and hide other things. Okay. So let's see. When we are editing, we want to show what? We want to show the input field. We want to show the checkbox, right? And we want to show the times. So we're going to show these three things. So let's put these three things together, one after another, like that, right? And when we're not editing, we instead want to show these two other things, right? Just the hyperlink, right? And the edit button. And the edit button is going to allow me to toggle, turn on editing, and the check marks and the times are going to allow me to turn off the editing. Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's see. What we're going to do is that we're going to wrap these two again. We're going to wrap these two with an anonymous elements. Okay. They're not doing anything, right? They're just logically allowing us to wrap things together, just group things together, right? Just these two, followed by these two, right? As if they were each one a logical piece, right? Again, I'm not adding span or div or anything like that, but it allows me to group them, right, logically. And we're going to decide that if I am not editing, I'm going to display this, right? But if I am editing, right? If I am editing, I'm going to display this part. See that? Right? Now, what is editing right now? Editing is false. So notice that I have the module and the check and the edit icon, right? Right? And if it's true, this is true, then we have the input field, right? The checkbox and the X. Okay? Right? So we need to be able to toggle this. We need to be able to toggle this for each individual element, right? For each individual element. So how do we do that? Well, we have this right here. So this icon here, when we click on the icon, which is this edit button over here, right? We're going to toggle it to be true, right? So we're going to say on click, we're going to say set editing to true. Right? Let's try it out. So if I click on it, notice that it toggles to the input field. See that? Individually. Only that one changes to editing. See that? So each one has its own little substate, right? That it's only within that one component. Right? Each one has its own editing flag. Right? Now we need to be able to toggle back. Right? So to do that, we're going to use the checkbox. So the checkbox, I'm going to say on click. We're going to say set editing, right? And we're going to say false. All right, so now I'm going to be able to toggle between the two and say, okay, it goes back, edit, toggle back, edit, toggle back. Everybody good? All right, awesome. Let's keep going.
Quick question.
Yes.
If you wanted to have the edit toggle be available only for one item at a time, would you need to move the edit state up to the reducer?
Yes, you need to move it to the reducer, or make it part of the state up here so that everybody can read it somewhere where a global variable that way they can all take a look at it, right? Take a look at it. They'd be able to see it, right? So that they can uncheck themselves.
Thanks.
Yep. All right, excellent. So let's keep going. So let's see. We could which one should we do first? So let's work on removing, right? Let's say that I want to remove this. So this times over here, this times, right? So I want to click on delete and it's gone, right? It's gone. So how do we do that? So basically, first I want to see, can I do on click here and say that maybe an alert, and so delete, and then 1, 2, 3, right? So if I click here, notice that it says, there we go. So delete 1, 2, 3, right? So any X that I click is going to say delete 1, 2, 3. Perfect. All right. I don't really want to do that, right? I want to notify, whoever passed me this item. I want to notify them that I want to remove that item. Okay. Oops. Sorry. That was my computer just crashed. Okay, so what we're going to do here is that we're going to notify whoever is passing me this item. We're going to let them know that we want to remove this item, right? So we're going to say delete item. So this is going to be a callback function that you're going to pass me, and so which we're going to move this, right? Let's move this alert. Let's move this alert, and we're going to do a default function here, right? Default function. We'll call this 234. And we're going to call this delete here, right? So this delete item, and we're going to pass the item, the actual item, right? And 234. So if I click on this on X, notice that it says delete 234. So I'm calling that default function there, that default function. I can even alert the item, right? I'm passing you the item. So I can say, delete, and then the item.id. The ID, right? Let's see. Delete. There it is. Delete 1, 2, 3, and this is delete 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And this delete down here is delete something, some weird number. Okay. So we definitely can pass that information, but who's going to pass that to me? Well, my parent is going to pass it to me, right? In this case, is the module list. The module list, when we are rendering the editable item, is going to pass us a function. Delete, delete item. I'm going to pass as a function, right? That we're going to be able to call it. We're going to be able to call it, and we're going to pass. So this right here. So let's copy this, copy that. It'll be the function right here. Okay. Let's see. Do I have a? Yeah, there it is, right? So if we don't have this, if we don't have that. Okay, let's see if it works. Oops. Okay, let's see if it works. Edit, delete. There it is, 1, 2, 3, right? Or this one. There it is, delete 2, 3, 4. So it's still working, right? So we're passing it down to you. We're gonna pass it down to you. But really, we don't want it here. We want it who? Who do we want this to handle this? Really, who we want to handle this is the reducer, right? We want to be able to call the reducer, the module's reducer. And here in delete module, we want to be able to invoke this right here. Okay, so how do we do that? Okay, so we are going to notify a function, just like we did before, right? Remember that? Right, this is a function that is being passed by the mapper, right? So we're going to have a delete module. Somebody's going to pass us this function, right? Which is going to, for now, let's move this here. Let's move that. We're going to move over here, right? Call that. And so we're going to call delete module. So we're going to call delete module here. Delete module. All right, let's see if it still works. Still works, right? Still works. Perfect. But you're going to pass this to me, right? So basically this is going to really come from the mapper, right? This mapper over here, right? It's going to have another function here, delete module, that is going to take an item, right? And we're going to be able to call it right here, right? So just instead of the item, let's do the title. Well, let's print out the title. Okay, so let's see. There it is, delete module 1, 2, 3. Delete module 2, 3, 4. This one 3, 4, 5. So let's click on it. So delete module 3, 4, 5. So that's working, right? There it is. So we got it right here. But really, we don't want to just do the alert. We just want to pass it to the dispatch. We want to pass to the dispatch. What do we want to pass? We want to pass dispatch an action, which is delete module, right? That delete module. There it is, right? So that we can then have the alert here, right? We want to call this alert here, alert, right? Delete the module. Okay, right? So now if we call it, notice it says delete the module. There it is. So we're in the reducer. We're in the reducer. We're in the right place. We are right here. Here's where we can actually recalculate the next state so that we have removed that one module. Make sense? Okay, but we need to pass here the module that we want to remove, right? Otherwise, how are we going to calculate the next state? Okay, well, we need to pass in this dispatch. Notice that we're only passing type equal delete module, right? So that we can do this action.type equal to delete module. But we don't have to just pass the type. We can pass other things, right? For instance, we can pass the item. We can say the module is the item. See that? Right? We can make it a little bit more readable here. Right? We can pass the module. So we can call it module to delete. Right? So we can pass the module to delete. So now here we can have delete the module. We have it in the action. We have it in as part of the action dot module to delete dot title. Right? So now if I click on it, there it is. See, delete the module 1, 2, 3. Delete the module 2, 3, 4. So we are here. We have the module that we want to remove. So now we actually have to remove it. So how do we remove it? Well, the way we're going to remove it is that, again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to recalculate the state. We're going to recalculate a brand new state. I'm going to say const new state. Right? It's going to have modules. Going to have modules is going to be what? It's going to be the old modules minus the module that we don't want, right? So how do we do that? We're going to filter. We're going to take the old modules, state.modules, and we're going to filter. I'm going to say filter. As you're iterating over each module, we're going to answer the question, right? If the module you're iterating over, if the ID, right, is equal to the module to delete, right? Module action dot module to delete, right? Dot ID. So if it matches, so if the module that I'm looking at right now, right, is the same ID as the one that I want to remove, I'm going to return false. Right? So that's how filter works. So filter takes a function, right, that if that function returns false, it's going to skip over that item. Instead, if it returns true, right, if it returns true, then it keeps that item. Okay. Let's see. What is it complaining about? Filter, yada yada yada. Module const new state. What is it complaining about? Parsing error, identifier new state has already, oh, I used new state already. Oh, new state consts, really? New state 1, fine. And so now I can just return the new state, return new state 1. Okay, all right, so let's try it out. Let's refresh. So let's edit here and do delete. Okay, there it is, it's gone, right? All right, so I can remove. Now, obviously lessons doesn't work because we haven't done anything with the lessons, right? There's there's nothing there. We haven't passed any functions, anything, right? So that's why that still doesn't work, right? We have to do that for the lessons as well. All right, how about editing? How about I want to edit, right? I want to edit this. So how do I edit? Let's do that. Right. So let's go back to the editable item. What we're going to do is that this title here, right? When I edit, it should be the input field. So the value of the input field, the value should be the item, that title, right? So that there it is. See that? If I edit, notice that the input field is whatever the value of the title is. But notice that I can't edit it. Right? I can't edit it because it's forever tied to the item.title, right? Which I cannot manipulate, right? Because it's being passed to me from outside. Right? So I don't have what I need to be able to, to be able to edit this. I need to be able to copy it into a local variable so I can edit it, and then I can let them know that it has been updated, right? So how do we do that? Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to create another cached version of the item so that we can edit it locally, right? So we can say const a cached item, set cached item, equal to use state, right? And the new value, the initial value is going to be the item itself. So it's going to copy the item into this cached item, right? It's going to have this initial value. So now we can edit it. We can say, right? So now I can say that the field is the cached item title, right? Notice that I still can't edit it, right? I still can't edit it. I actually can. I need to, and every keystroke, I need to be able to update that title, right, as I am editing it, right? So I'm going to say on change, right? I'm going to take the event of me clicking each keystroke, right? And I'm going to update my cached item. I'm going to say, I'm going to set the cached item, right, to be, right? It's going to have I'm going to put this in a separate line. It's going to copy the old cached item, right? It's going to copy the old cached item. If you have other things in there, like the ID, you might have other dates, you might have other pieces of information in there. You don't want to lose that, so you want to copy that over, right? And I want to override the title. I want to override the title. I'm going to override the title to be whatever I pressed, right? Whatever the input field value, current value is, right? So I'm going to override the title to be whatever the very latest version of the value of that input field. Okay, so if I go back, now I can edit it. See that? I can edit it. I can edit each individual one. I can edit lessons. They can be edited. Okay, obviously when I say okay, nothing happens, right? Because it's only the input field. Only the input field knows about its cached version, right? What I need to do, what we need to be able to do is notify, right, everyone above me that the title has changed and that I want the change to be permanent, right? That needs to be updated in the reducer, okay? All right, so we ran out a little bit of time. If you needed to drop off, I understand, that's fine. I'm going to keep going a little further, right? So that we're going to update the lesson. I'm sorry, the modules in the reducer. But again, if you need to drop off, I understand, right? So I'm going to keep up. I'm going to continue for a couple more minutes. All right. So what we need to do is that when we do the OK and we do the check, right? Not only do we need to change this to set editing false, right? We need to somehow notify, right, upstream that the items should change permanently, right? And then we need to go to the reducer, right, and make sure that the change is made in the reducer so that the next state is going to have my brand new item. Okay. All right, so how do we do that? Well, we're going to do the same thing that we did earlier. Just like we had a delete item, right? I want to have a update item, right? Update item that I can invoke, okay? Here in the when you do the check, right? So let's do that. We're gonna wrap this in a curly bracket because we're gonna do more than one thing, right? Not just set editing false. We also want to call update item, and I want to pass you the new version of that item, which is my cached version, right? Which has a new title, has the same ID. Right? Notice that this is very important, right? That I copied over all the items, including the ID, right? If I would have just said this, okay, the title would have changed, but I would have lost all the other elements, right? All the other properties are gone, right? So careful there. All right, so we're going to do the update items. Who's going to pass this to me? Well, my parent, my module list is going to pass me the update item, which I am going to use to call the reducer, which is going to be the update course, right? Which doesn't exist. So you're going to pass it to me. You're going to pass it to me. The update course. We're going to have the new item, right? And somebody's going to pass it to me. Who's going to pass it to me? Right here, the dispatcher, right? It's going to have a update course. It's going to have the brand new course, right? With the new title and everything. And we're going to call the dispatcher, right? We're going to give you the type is going to be update module. Oh, not course. I'm sorry, module. Why did I say course? Module. How about over here? Did I say course too? Sorry, I meant module. Module, update module. Sorry about that. Update module. There we go. Okay, there's update module and dispatch, and we're going to pass the new module, right? Module. I could say module, but remember, right? Like if the name of the attribute and the name of the value are not the same, then you have to put the key and the value. But if they're the same, right? Remember, you can use this shortcut, right? Just the name of the attribute and you're done, right? It assumes that both the value and the key are the same. All right, so we're passing to the action. We're passing a module and the type. So that puts us where? That puts us right here in the update module, right here, right? And so what is going to be the new state? The new state is going to be, new state to, well, I don't have to do this, right? I can just say return. You return, the new state is going to have the modules. Right? The module is going to be what? The module is going to be the old modules, all the old modules except one of them, right? One of them is going to be the new module, right? With a new title or anything else we might have edited. Okay, so we need to iterate over all the modules and check to see if it's checking the ID, if it's a new module that we edited, if it's that ID, we want the new version, right? We want to skip over the old version. But if it's not the ID, we want to keep the original modules, right? So let's do that. We're going to say, we take the old modules, I'm going to go iterate over all the modules, and I'm going to recreate a new array using map. As I iterate over each module, I ask myself, right? I ask myself if the module's ID matches the new module in the action that I pass, matches the ID, then I want the new one. I want to return the action module. No, I think I spelled it. This is, sorry, action module. If the ID matches, right, then I want that brand new module that is in the action. Otherwise, I want the old one. I just want M. Okay. There we go. Okay. And we return that. All right. So let's refresh. Let's see if this works. So I'm going to edit module 1, 2, 3. I'm going to add something. Say okay. And there it is. See that? It modified. You can modify this one. Say okay, and it changed. All right. That makes sense. All right, folks. So yeah, my intention is that you have enough to keep you busy right? And try to recreate what we just did for the modules and try to recreate it for the lessons and for the topics, right? Get that going. You'll need to create all the reducers. You'll need to combine them, right? You'll need to create all these same thing here that we created for the modules. You need to do something similar for the lessons and the topics, right? And then for the module list, right? We created this dispatch to property mapper with create module, delete module, update module, right? You'll need to do the same thing for the lessons, right? Create lesson, delete lesson, update lesson, and same thing for the topics. So I think that'll keep you busy for over the weekend and until we come back on Monday. And when we come back on Monday, we're gonna start connecting this to the server, right? We'll need to make these changes permanent on the server. We'll need to be able to navigate between the courses and the modules so that when you select a course, right, we're able to retrieve the modules for that course. We also need to connect the modules to lessons, the lessons to topics, right? So that if you select a module, you get the right lessons. When you select the lesson, you get the right topics, right? So we'll do that when we come back on Monday, right? All right, excellent. So that's all I had for you. Remember to like the video on YouTube and share it. If you can leave a comment as well, that'd be great. Any questions?
Yeah, Professor, if no one else has any questions, I just have a specific one. I mean, it's okay if people are in the meeting. I just
Sure. What's up?
Okay, I have a quick question. So sorry. Oh, thanks, Scott.
no, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to make sure that since for example, like the local state, we need to manage. All we need is just using the use state, right? And if it's an like global state, we use the Redux, and enjoy the convenience what Redux brings us. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Got it. Thanks. Just try to make sure.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Have a good night, Professor.
Good night. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Professor?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to check, or does anyone else have a question? I don't want to hold anyone.
I have a quick question about the exam. I am supposed to be on a plane on the 10th. I was wondering if it was possible to have the exam available on the 9th.
Sure. You could even, I mean, I think it's available on the 10th for 72 hours.
Yeah.
So you prefer it earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. We could do that. If you could ping me, you have my phone number, just ping me and remind me and I can totally make it available for you. So I'm going to just put up my phone number here. Feel free to text me or even call me if I'm not responding right away and I can open it up for you.
Thank you.
All right, good luck.
Anyone else? Okay, yeah, Professor, it's pretty simple question. I was just wondering, so I asked about the material UI on Piazza instead of Bootstrap.
Sure, yes.
So I like, kind of just started creating like some basic stuff with the course editor, but like I couldn't really find anything specific that kind of resembles like pills. So I was just like wondering like if it's a little bit different, if that's okay, like, or if you want me to just like.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, if it's functionally similar, then that's fine. I understand if you're using other things other than Bootstrap, it won't necessarily have a one-to-one mapping, and we're totally aware of that, and we'll take that into account. Sure.
Okay. All right. Great. So, and in terms of the naming convention, should I still like create the components as if they were one-to-one, even though maybe it's not actually a pill?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that would only just.
I just don't want to confuse TAs. You know what I mean?
It was going to just confuse the grading. So I would just use the same naming convention.
Okay.
Just so that we know what it is.
Yeah, for sure. That's fine. I mean, it doesn't really matter for me, as long as I'm getting a good grade on the homework, and I'm just trying to learn like a different
points,
thing.
Just let me know, and then certainly we'll give them back to you.
Okay, thank you. And the only other thing I wanted to ask you was, I did a quick refactor after looking over the rubric for assignment 3. And it's just not letting me, for whatever reason, I deleted the assignment 3 tag on GitHub, and it's just not letting me re-tag assignment 3, even though I deleted the first tag. So can I just
You
call
can
it
use
like,
just 3.1.
okay, yeah, that's what I was gonna do. Perfect. All right,
Yeah.
just wanted to check.
Yep.
All right, well, have a good night. Take care. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hi, Professor. I'm having the last time the night class. I asked about why my history is not passing. The props is not passing basically. So I post a private post on Piazza. So I'm not sure when will you be.
Oh, let me check it. I'm gonna take a look right now.
Okay. So next office hour or when should I
Sure.
get back?
Although you were able to use history, right?
Yes, I use hooks, but that's not.
Yeah. That's even
Yeah.
better. But yes, I'm just curious. Yep.
Yeah. So I'll get back to you next
Sure.
office hour.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, folks. Thank you. Good night.